Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mine Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Krinsman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast brought to you by both the Bamboozle Project as well as DraftKings. We thank both of them for their sponsorship of our program as always. We couldn't do it without you, and you cannot do it without Bamboozle Project gear. And you can get your gear at www.thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. I know people yesterday got a bunch of gear. I don't know if it's like you're stocking up now. You think you're going into off-season mode, which we'll get into in a minute. But for those of you that were on the site yesterday, I know you guys got a bunch of stuff, and we thank you for doing that. And we thank DraftKings as well. This is episode 194, Ciento Noventa y Cuatro. So that is on the Spanish style. I'll say that again because you like that. Ciento Noventa y Cuatro.
See,
episode 194. You can send us your questions, your thoughts, your feedback, your complaints, your compliments. And there's not a lot of compliments these days to go around Ranger World. But you can send whatever you would like at our Instagram page. We're on it all the time at Mind Your Pucking Business. I will admit that yesterday there were so many DMs and I didn't get to a lot of them until this morning. I apologize for that. I will be better with that going forward. You can listen to today's episode, which we are taping on Wednesday morning, April 9th. You can listen to it on Spotify or iTunes, stream it at your pleasure. Or I think actually it's not iTunes. I think it's Apple Podcasts now, if I'm not mistaken. So you can stream it at your convenience on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or you can watch us live this morning and interact with us. The chat is already going. I could see on Instagram and YouTube, they are both active with comments and complaints about the Rangers. So this should be a lot of fun.
There's probably a lot of complaints.
Yeah, I would say complaints. I'm not sure that if I scroll up and down, I'll find anything positive. So, but that's fine. All right. So what we do here, for those of you who are new, because we always have new listeners every week, is we try at least to start the show and go in some chronological order of when we were on last, which was last Wednesday. And last Wednesday, the Rangers played host to the Minnesota Wild. And before the game, here will be your only positive piece of information on the show. You ready?
Yeah.
You want positivity? You want glass half full, not glass half empty?
Lay it on me.
Will Cooley wins the Stephen McDonald Award before the game. Well-deserved. I didn't vote on it. I'm pretty sure it's open to people to vote. I never vote. But if I did cast the vote, it would have absolutely been Will Cooley. So fans...
The Mr. Ranger number 7 award?
No, that was the Raj O'Barra Award, which we'll get to.
All right. My bad.
So Will Cooley wins the award. Congratulations. Completely well-deserved. I mean, some years, like, they give out that award, and you're like, it could be one of these three players. This year, it should have been Will Cooley, and it was Will Cooley. So glad to see they got it right. The Rangers win a game last Wednesday with Minnesota that they needed to win, right? At that point in time, I mean, you're really thinking you have a chance to make the playoffs. You have a team coming in from the Western Conference. You need to win that game. Trocheck wins the game in overtime on a nice play from Artemi Panarin, and the Rangers going to win that game. The Devils game Saturday, I didn't see any of it. Here's what happened. My son had a game at 1 o'clock. Now, I was originally a little bit, I'll say this, I was a little bit annoyed at first when the schedule came out because I was like, you know what, that's a great game to go to an away game at the Rock. It's a Saturday afternoon. We could go. Then I was resigned to the fact that I wasn't going to be able to when the schedule came out. And then last week I saw the weather forecast for Saturday was terrible. And I said, you know what, maybe if it gets canceled, we could still go. And it didn't get canceled. And boy, was the hockey gods karma on my side that I didn't go. I didn't see it, right? I know there were shorthanded goals against. I know they didn't show up. I'm thankful I didn't go, right? I mean, what else can you say when you lose 4-0 to the Devils and you don't show up? I'm not sure what else you want me to talk about, right? There's not a lot really to say. There's not a lot to break down. There's not a lot to say. The Tampa game Monday night, for me, I don't know why. Well, I know why I sat and watched it because I watch every game, right? But there was a part of me that I just felt like at 6:30 when I was doing work for my real job, and I was like, I got to finish this up because the game's starting at 7. I was like, I just don't feel like watching this, but I'm going to watch it. And I sat down and watched it. knowing going into that game, the reality of them making the playoffs was bleak. And as I said, if they got in the playoffs, they were going to be out in the first round anyway. So I don't really care that much.
Mhm.
But it was the way that first period went that I just was like literally infuriated. And if you saw our Instagram story, I left to go to ShopRite. Like I couldn't bear to watch that game. The 3 goals after a 2-minute span in the first period. First off, Adam Fox comes in on a 2-on-1 goal, a 2-on-1 opportunity. And all of a sudden, he's thinking he's Alexei Kovalev from 1994 with the spinorama move and doesn't do anything, doesn't get back, and they score, which leads into it. So I just don't, I said what I needed to say the other night. If you saw it on the Instagram story, I mean, we're going to say it again in a couple minutes, but like, I don't know what else you want to say. Nikolai in the comments, who's bringing up a point, we're going to get to what you're talking about, actually, Nikolai, in a minute. After the game on Monday night, again, I don't usually watch the post-game shows. It's just not my thing at all. But I kind of had it on in the background, and then people started texting me, "Oh, did you see what Laviolette just said?" Okay, so when you get those texts and those DMs, I've got to do that.
Mhm.
So Peter Laviolette says after the game, and I quote: "This is not me emphasizing. This is not
No exaggeration.
yeah. I'm
Word for word.
I'm quoting here, and then I'll
Word
tell
for
you
word. No chat GPT.
when the quote ends, and that is quote: I don't have a message right now. I don't go into the locker room after the game. End quote. Now, when I saw that, okay, I actually thought because people are pretty stupid,
Yeah.
and I apologize if you're one of these people, and I'm sure some of you are listening.
I apologize if you're pretty stupid.
But people who post stuff like last week, like, Artemi Panarin tears his ACL because it's April Fool's. Like, half the stuff that comes on my Instagram the last week, I don't even know what's true or not.
Mhm.
And when I saw that, I thought, was that actually something he just said now? Or was that something that someone posted on April 1st as a joke because it's April Fool's Day? Because how could that be real? But it's real. When Peter Laviolette says, I don't have a message right now, I don't go into the locker room after the game, you know what that tells me? The first thing it tells me, he ain't going to be here next year. And he doesn't want to be here next year. Because
Okay.
Peter Laviolette's been in the league long enough to know that what you say in the post game or whatever he says, not even pregame, whatever, right? The way the world is right now, everything is recorded. Okay.
Mhm.
So you know that's going to get out there. If you were planning on being the coach in your final year of your contract next year, you would never in a million years say that, ever. Why?
I mean, he means like every single game, or just like this one because he's pissed.
I think I mean, he made it seem like it is a constant thing. Now, we know we've all been suspect, and I'm not saying this is all in Peter Laviolette because it's not, but we've all been suspect that they have tuned him out for months. When you hear your coach say that I don't go into the locker room after the game and I don't have a message, I just don't. I'm not even sure what am I supposed again? What are you supposed to say? It just gets more comical.
Yeah.
So was Monday night rock bottom? All right, here's the question. This year, this 2024-2025 season, which has basically been a season of shit, what is rock bottom? I'm going to give you examples because there is a plethora of examples that you can pick from as to what rock bottom really is, and you can tell me which one it is. I'll use my own experiences when it's relevant to the games.
Okay.
I went to a game versus Buffalo in November and saw them get lit out of the building that I left after the second period. I had nowhere to be. I didn't even need to go home. My wife and kids were at Great Adventure for the day. But I left. It was that bad that I left after the second period and they lost 6-2. I went to Philadelphia the day after Thanksgiving weekend and I saw them not show up, have 2 shots, if I remember correctly, in the first period, and basically lose to Philly. 3 days later, I attended a game with Frank the Tank to watch them play the Devils at home, and the Rangers were down 2-0 before most people were even in their seats and were never even in the game. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, they had a Saturday holiday time matinee. And if you know something about Ranger tickets, Saturday games in December, same thing with Knicks, are always a hot ticket because it's the holidays, New York City. They got lit up by the Kings 5-1. The day before Christmas and when Santa Claus was coming and Hanukkah Harry or whatever Kwanzaa uses, whatever you use to celebrate your holiday, the Rangers had a holiday matinee at the Devils and lost 5-0. And I watched that game on a flight to Cancun, and it was disgusting. It was so bad that secretly somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, whatever it is called these days, I wanted the Wi-Fi signal to die on the plane that I didn't have to endure that. Then they played the Canadiens on a Sunday night in January and blew multiple leads and lost 5-4 in OT in a game now which was relevant, was super relevant, because Montreal's the team that's going to take that last wild card spot. A week later, they played a Sunday afternoon game home against the Avalanche. They were tied at 4 with 20 seconds left when both teams are openly fine with leaving with a point, and then we'll play to get the second point, and the Rangers decide to throw the puck away with 15 seconds left and give Colorado 2 points and say, we'll leave with none. Then there's a Friday night game in February where they lose 3-2 at home, where the Penguins are so bad that Crosby doesn't play. You can't recognize the Penguins roster, and the entire third period, the Pittsburgh Penguins had 0 shots on goal, and the Rangers lost 3-2. Or was it after the Four Nations on a Saturday afternoon when they played Buffalo, who sucks, and the Rangers were down 5-0 after the first period and went on to lose 8-2? Or was it 2 weeks later when they had a game up in Ottawa, which you knew was super important for the wild card, and they had a 2-goal lead in the third period and lost 3-2? So the next night they come home and play another team in Columbus that is right there in the wild card picture with them and get blown out 7-3. After in that game, I should mention, they scored 2 shorthanded goals being down 3-1, and the Garden was alive, and then they just basically decided to not show up. But maybe it was March 18th in a loss 2-1 versus Calgary, who sucks and came off a back-to-back and played the night before in Toronto and outshot the Rangers 35-13 with players on their roster I've never even heard of. Or was it 2 weeks ago, late at night on a Friday night, when you decided to stay up, when you could have been doing more fun things in your life, to watch your team lose 5-4 after you had two separate 2-goal leads in the third period to lose in overtime to the Ducks? Or was it this Saturday, rock bottom, when they lost 4-0 to the Devils, like they never got off the team bus? They went through the Lincoln Tunnel and never got off the bus. Or was it the most recent example 2 nights ago on Monday night, where they just didn't show up and lost 5-1?
Yeah. So what do you guys think in the
What
comment section?
really? What is rock bottom? There are so many examples here. I just went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 games. 15 games that they went through that are awful to talk about that could all win rock bottom award. I don't know which of the 15 is rock bottom.
Which one are we going to give rock bottom award to? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. This is the worst season of New York Ranger hockey since 1992, 1993. Now, here's why. Let me explain to you why, because now you're going to sit there and say, and a lot of you people who watch us and listen to this, I know this, are younger than me. So you don't know 92, 93, and you're going to sit there and say, well, I was told growing up by my parents or whoever unfortunately made you a Ranger fan of this franchise that the late 90s and the early 2000s was a very dark time and they sucked for a long time. And you are correct. But you know what? When they sucked in those years, they didn't have talent. They weren't good. They didn't win the President's Trophy the year before. This team has all the talent and just doesn't care. It's like literally unbelievable. Now, Nikolai was saying in the chat before, and he's right, that in 1991, 1992, the Rangers won the President's Trophy and lost. If my memory serves me correct, they lost to the Penguins in the second round. They beat the Devils in 7 in the first round. I remember that. I think Game 7 was a Friday night at the Garden. Could be wrong on that. But they beat the Devils in the first round and lost to Pittsburgh in the second round. The next year, all of that group, most of that group is back again, right? Terrible year. The coach gets fired in Roger Nielsen. And the next year, they won their Stanley Cup. Now, does that mean that this team will follow the script? I'm not sure about that. But this is easily the worst season of New York Ranger hockey in 33 years. I don't even know how you could argue that. And Nikolai, who's saying there is this more of a rock bottom than David Quinn? Of course it is, because David Quinn didn't have this talent.
Well, is that the most painful part of this? Is that like it's not like like if they were playing their hardest and got their butts kicked, it would be less painful. Like it looks like they're not even on. There's no one even
Yes.
on the ice.
What bothers me mostly? So again, we all know I have season tickets. We pay for a product. It's like if you go to TS Ma, our favorite Chinese restaurant
great
around
product.
here. Great product. If I pay for something, you expect to get a product back.
Yeah.
What is the most aggravating thing about all of this? And there's a lot that's aggravating, trust me. But the number one thing is that the players don't care. They're not competing. I don't understand it. I don't. If you hate Chris Drury, you don't like your general manager so much that you're going to go out and throw away a season here, get the fuck out of town. Seriously, get the fuck out. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how talented you are. If you're not going to compete and you're not going to give 100% effort, seriously, get the fuck out of New York. Go somewhere else. I don't need it.
Yeah.
But I don't even understand how this is even happening.
Why would you even want to be here? So like we talk about this all the time. Like, you know, people have no trade clauses and no movement, whatever. Why would you even want to be here if you're not even trying?
So I was talking with someone the other day, okay, in my real job. And they have, like, I want to say a 5 or 6 year old kid, something in that age, kindergarten or first grade, right? He said, we signed our kid up for T-ball. And what I've learned is it's not for him. He doesn't want to be there. So we're not going to sign him up next year, right? Which is fine. Not every kid has to be in the T-ball. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But when a 5-year-old goes out and goes to T-ball and doesn't want to play and isn't into it and doesn't care, that's understandable. That 5-year-old isn't getting paid $7 million a year to produce.
True.
And probably doesn't have the talent either. These people do, and they don't care.
It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. And you're only hurting, like, you're not hurting like the Rangers and Chris Drury. You're hurting your own career because now no one other team's going to want you.
Go ahead, B-Rock.
Look at this. Look at this.
I see. I saw you guys had it queued up.
No way.
No way. No way. Here you go. He's gonna.
No way.
Yeah. Well, it is way that it is. So what I decided to do, and we'll move the Ovechkin stuff to the end of the show. Yesterday, we opened up for questions for you guys to ask, and I've never. If you are interested, you can DM us, and I will show you. We have never gotten flooded with the amount of questions that you guys send, to the point that if we sat here and answered them all, we'd be here till next Friday, and that's not fair to you. So what I tried to do was take the ones that kind of had similar themes asked about it. Maybe you could get multiple questions into one. And the thought was that you guys, understandably so, would want to sound off through your questions. And I was right. You did. So the first question is this: who's replacing Laviolette and who are the top candidates? Now, technically, Laviolette, as a reminder, is still employed with the team. And we're not taking the last question by Brian Hanslin that I see on the thing. Laviolette is still employed and has a year left. I think after what you saw the other night, he ain't coming back. And I don't think he wants to be back.
Over this one quote?
It just, you don't say that. If you had intention of being here next year, why would you say that? Maybe it's true, right? And unfortunately, if it's true, but it's another thing when you say it to the media. Like, you're almost asking for your release. You're basically saying, Chris Drury, fire me. I can walk away from this mess and still get paid. I understand why. So who's replacing Laviolette and who are the top candidates? Now, one thing with Laviolette is 2 years ago when they fired Gerard Gallant, there's a clip of this actually on Instagram that I said that they should get Chris Knobloch from Hartford. They didn't do that. Obviously, Knobloch went on to coach in Edmonton, where he still is. I don't know that I can say to you that Laviolette was the wrong coach, because if you hire someone and in the first year you win the President's Trophy and you go to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think I'm not sure I can say he's the wrong coach. He's the wrong coach right now, but at the time he might not have been the wrong coach. So I just want to say, like, I was wrong on that. I'm at a point, I'm now going to do a 180 on my thinking. I am one of these idiots, okay, that will always tell you, oh, I know this guy that's open on the trade market. He's coached here and it would be good, right? Bring in a guy that's been around, experience. No. I'm looking at what Spencer Carberry is doing in Washington, who, by the way, was interviewed for the job that Laviolette got. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at some other young coaches in the league having success. And right now, I don't think I mind getting a young voice, because when I look at the players that are available, or the coaches that are available, right? Or the retreads, right? The ones you know. There's obviously Tortorella, and I honestly am not sure. Mike Sullivan might be available. I could live with that, I think. If you told me Mike Sullivan's the coach, I could live with it. And the other one is Joel Quenneville. Now, Joel Quenneville, I may get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to be honest, is the best of the three coaches there. But Joel Quenneville comes with an enormous amount of PR baggage from the sexual assault case in Chicago that I don't know that you want to go down that road. Now, he's been reinstated by the league. Now, someone told me Monday night off MYPB stuff, not MYPB related, who I was talking to, who knows his stuff, said, look, you have to hire Quenneville, and because eventually that PR stuff will go away. It may be annoying in the beginning, and it may be around, and rightfully so it should be around. I'm not ignoring it, but eventually it'll go on to just being a coach, and he's the best coach out there. So would I hate Joel Quenneville? No, but you have to be prepared that Joel Quenneville comes with a lot of problems.
Who's the no nonsense, no BS coach?
John Tortorella. But John Tortorella, the more I have thought about it in the past week, his history of not being great with developing young players seems to be the number one problem this issue always has. I'm not sure he's the right fit. Now, David, who writes on Instagram, the Denver head coach in college, who's David Carl, would be great. That if you were going to go with a young mind, that's who I would go with. Now, the Rangers, if you're this guy who's in the Frozen Four tomorrow, actually, again, he won the national championship last year. He's probably, I would say in college, actually not probably, and I don't mean this as disrespect to all the other college coaches, he's the best college hockey coach right now.
Wow.
Now, when you make the leap from the NCAA to the pros, are you guaranteed that it's going to translate? Absolutely not. Okay. Those who want Mark Messier, we've had this discussion. Mark Messier is my internet passwords for my email and everything still to this day. I love Mark Messier, but this is not the time for Mark Messier. And look at Wayne Gretzky when he's coached in the league, right? Just because you were a great player, right, doesn't mean that you know how to coach.
True.
Peter Laviolette, so to answer your question, he's not going to be here next year. I would say it's either David Carl, or if you want to go down the Quenneville road, or maybe Mike Sullivan. I don't want Michael Pekka. Here's why I don't want Michael Pekka. Because Michael Pekka has been part of this group this year that they've already tuned out. So I don't need him. Next question. Is this another rebuild that's coming? No. It can't be a rebuild. Here's what everyone is missing, right? You can't rebuild when you just signed a goalie to an 8-year deal on the highest contract ever. They didn't do that to put him in the middle of a rebuild. So the word I would use is not rebuild, is retool. Now, is it easy to retool? No, it's not. But you can't look at it as a rebuild or the infamous letter that we all got as season ticket holders when you have the highest paid player or in net in the most important position. I'm going to leave out the curse word in the next question. What is wrong with the blank is wrong with this team? Well, I said it before. I'll say it again. There's a lot, but the most important thing is that they don't care and they're not even showing up. And it doesn't matter how much talent you have, right? If you don't show up and, give it your all, especially in professional sports, you're going to lose. Like you just are. So there's got to be some sort of changing of the message. Now, is Chris Drury going to get fired is the other question that I seem to get a lot. I don't know what I would make of Chris Drury. Here's my pros and cons with Chris Drury. Chris Drury, in the last 2 of 3 years, got this team to the Eastern Conference Finals. That is an incredible piece of work to put on your resume. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
A team that I was responsible for got to the President's Trophy. Got to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 of the last 3 years. That is outstanding. However, it is becoming only more and more apparent here that the team and him do not agree. And I don't know if I'm James Dolan, if I sit there and say, do I value the fact that he has had a good last 3 years until now, or do I look at this and say, that's in the past, right now going forward, this group does not work well with him, and make a change? You might have to. Because if you're going to have a lot of these players back, and you are, if you think there's going to be massive roster turnover from top to bottom, there's not. Look at the no movement clauses that these players have. Look at the length of contract. Look at what they're getting annually paid. Other teams are not taking that on. They're not stupid. So, yes, there will be some change. There is on every single team every year. But if you think you're going to see a massive change next year, you're not. So, knowing that, if these people are still here and they hate Chris Drury in April, are they going to all of a sudden fall in love with him and decide to play in October of 2025? Probably not. So you might need to make a change. Now, here's one thing that I have not seen anyone talk about at all, okay, is that Glenn Sather is still in the background here. Like, he says he's retired and all that stuff. To me, Glenn Sather still calls the shots. If Glenn Sather says to James Dolan, you need to move Chris Drury for the reasons that I just mentioned, then he's going to be gone. And I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I would be concerned if Chris Drury is back that it's going to be the same thing next year. It would be kind of funny, right? Not funny's the wrong word. It would be eye-opening if you let Chris Drury go and next year these players busted out again and started playing hard. And then you would know what the problem was. Not that that would be okay.
Yeah, what do you do then? What do you do now? Even
so if it were me and if I was James Dolan,
yeah,
a fresh slate.
So you're
and I would not, by the way, bring in Michael Pekka.
So you're caving to the whims of the players.
Because those players are going to be here. And if they're going to be here next year, why would I assume that they're going to play different? Why would the locker room be different? You need a new coach and you need a new voice above, because they're not playing for the voice. And that doesn't mean it's all Chris Drury's fault either. But as Chris is saying, let the inmates run the asylum.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what you're
now, I would be curious because Chris, if you follow us on Instagram, Chris gets asked as many questions as anyone. I mean, people will literally tag him in the, I don't know if you've seen this. They'll put his handle, KMiska92, I think it is, and say, Chris, what do you think of this? Chris has been pro Laviolette coming back next year. I just think that standing in that corner now, if you want to take on that, is hard. It's getting harder to take that stand that Laviolette should be back next year.
Regardless of Laviolette or Chris Drury, both of them, you're setting the tone that like, oh yeah, just don't play and you'll get what you want, which I don't think is a good tone.
I think you have to
let these players crash their careers. Go ahead, crash your career.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Why don't you pull up Emma's comment, because I can help with that as a season ticket holder. Do you think most season ticket holders are renewing next season? Yes, I don't see them making any changes as long as the money comes. So I have 10 tickets, so I can only speak to 10 of the 18,200 seats there. Or actually, I think it's 19,000 after the construction. I renewed them. Here's what happens. James Dolan has a rule with both the Rangers and the Knicks that they do not increase your price if your team does not make the playoffs. So what the Rangers actually did a couple weeks ago was they billed everyone for round one, right? I paid a ton of money for round one. However, now that they're not going to make it,
Yeah.
Although they won't do this until they're officially eliminated. Obviously, they want to sit on the money, which is
Stay
their
on the money as
choice.
long as possible.
Once they will be eliminated officially, they will refund that. So
Mhm.
they will not raise the ticket prices. I'm also trying to be optimistic and thinking that in a lot of these players being back next year, will try next year, and they have a decent chance of being good again. So I would say most people are renewing. I do know that there are some season ticket holders that are not happy and complaining. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't necessarily translate into they're not renewing their tickets. There's two different things, right? Because Ranger tickets are not the easiest thing to get, and we do get them cheaper than anywhere else.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go to games, it does make sense to renew them. So I would
And
think
once you
most
lose
people
them,
are.
you lose them.
Right. The renewal rate last year on the Rangers was like 98%. I think the Knicks were the same thing. Now, the Knicks will remain that high because they're going to be in the playoffs again. It must be nice. But for the Rangers, I mean, I can find out. I can ask my rep once they're done. Renewals, I think, are due April 18th. The playoff money was due last week. And then you have until April 18th, something in there to renew, I saw, for both Knicks and
Maybe
Rangers.
they
next
just
year.
take that playoff money and put it towards your renewal, or they give it
You
back to you
can.
first.
You can either, you have a choice. They can either give you back exactly what they charged you, or you can keep it on your account and credit it towards next year's. I mean, you're not losing money either way. It's just what you want to do with it.
Could this be the lowest renewal rate?
No. And
we've
George
seen in a
brings up
while?
a really good point, which is if you don't renew, you will not be able to get them back for years.
Because there's a wait list,
because
or,
there's a wait
or
list.
just
Yeah.
a principle. Like
No,
screw you, get
no. It's
outta
wait.
here.
It's wait list. Once you give your seats up, you're almost back in the back of the line. It takes time. So if you're a season ticket holder out there, and you're like trying to decide what do I want to do, I'm telling you, I would renew. All right, next question. Do you trade Igor? Now, this was a question asked, and I see it's actually in the comments too somewhere. No, I do not trade Igor. B-Rock and I were actually talking about this before we went live. I understand, like, now with the year they've had, you sit there and you say, well, we just signed Igor for $11.5 to $12 million per year for the next 8 years. What are they doing? I want to get rid of that contract on my books. He's still playing the most important position, and he's still one of the best in the games. You're not going to trade Igor. Like, I understand. Who's playing goalie, right?
Yeah.
If you got rid of Igor, Jonathan Quick is 39 years old. He's not going to be a goalie. The UConn goalie that they signed is not playing. Dylan Garrard, the guy in Hartford, isn't ready. He's not really having the greatest year either. Who's playing goalie? You need a goalie. That's your most important position.
He's the only one keeping you in the game too. Like if you're like, especially these guys aren't playing, he's your only lifeline.
Yes. We're going to pull up the next question, and Justin on Instagram, Varelli, just asked it, but it's right on cue with the next question, is that how is Kreider still a player anymore? Chris Kreider has literally aged 70 years in a matter of 9 months. It is unbelievable. I can't remember in any sport a player that has aged so quickly, so fast overnight. It's amazing.
That's what revenge and resentment does to you.
I don't understand. It's like it's not even like you become a shell of yourself. It's like you went to sleep and you woke up and you were a shell of a self. I don't know. And Chris Kreider shouldn't be here. And I also think, as Hank20NYR is saying on Instagram, that I think he's part of the problem in the locker room with the problems. I think Kreider has to get out of here. If Chris Kreider is here next year, I actually would be really, really annoyed. Last question we will take, at least from the ones you guys submitted. We'll take some from Instagram in a minute. How did the defense get so bad that it's literally hanging goalies out to dry every night? The Ranger defense is run by Phil Housley. Now, Phil Housley, again, the MYPB audience is younger than me, was a Hall of Fame defenseman for many years in Buffalo. Great defenseman. I believe he wore number 6. I might be wrong, but I believe he wore number 6. He ended up getting a coaching job with the Sabres, didn't work out, got fired, and he got hired by the Rangers to run the defense because that is where he made his money and his bread and butter as a Hall of Fame career as an NHL defenseman.
Mhm.
He has been terrible as a coach. He is absolutely terrible. And as Michael is saying on YouTube, he's the perfect example of a good player, bad coach.
Wow.
Wayne Gretzky comes into that message. As I talked about before, you're taking a risk if you think Mark Messier is a candidate to coach here. It is a risk. I don't know. The only player that I can think of right now, and I'm sure there's more, that was a good NHL player and a good coach is Rod Brind'Amour in Carolina. Now, a lot of these other people played in the league, but they weren't like good players. They were a good coach. Rod Brind'Amour was a great player. And I think that other than him, when I think of the good coaches in the game, they were not great players. They might have played. Like Gerard Gallant was a fourth-line guy in Detroit. Wasn't a great player, but I still think he was a good coach. Yeah, like Lindy Ruff played defense for the Devils. For the Rangers as a player. Wasn't great, but, he's 6th all-time in wins. I don't know. And Phil Housley illustrates, by the way, why you also don't keep the job in-house. Patrick Waugh was a great player, and he did win the Jack Adams Award in 2014 with the Avalanche, but the Avalanche were stacked. He's not having a good run on Long Island. I don't think we could say he was a great coach. He's okay as a coach. He's better than Gretzky was, but he's not at the level that Rod Brind'Amour is. Oh, Marty St. Louis. That's a good example. You know what? That's Gavin on Instagram is another. Right. Great career, obviously, with Tampa and the Rangers. He's doing a very good job up in Montreal. And he's going to take that team to the playoffs in the wild card. They will get Washington in the first round. But he does not have a lot. He doesn't have a lot to work with in Montreal, and he's done very well. I'm not surprised. Marty St. Louis actually doesn't surprise me that he's a good coach. A lot of questions. What clown do you suggest moving K'Andre with? K'Andre is a restricted free agent next year. The only problem I have for you, if you're a K'Andre disliker, is that I think if the Rangers were set on moving him, they would have moved him at the deadline because you could have gotten something for him. Now, if you get rid of him over the summer, even though I guess he's an RFA, you're probably not getting as much as you would have. I don't know. I think there's something that just makes me think that because they didn't even really try to move him, that I think they want K'Andre back, which will make people lose their mind. You could sign him and trade him, as Michael is suggesting on YouTube. Justin Donofrio, Gabe Perreault likely scratched tonight. What are we doing? Did they give her? I don't know. Is he hurt? I got to be honest. The Tampa game, and I'm not normally like this. When I left in the first period, after the first period, and went to ShopRite. Actually, I went to ShopRite and Wegmans. I didn't. Normally, like I would be tuned in, or I would go back and watch it. I didn't even watch. Was just so disgusted. Like I'm at a point now where I just want it to be over. Like I've literally
slow, painful death.
I've literally had enough of it.
Yeah. It's painful.
It's too much.
Painful.
The Rangers are home tonight against Philly, and tonight is actually something you should watch. They are allowing Sam Rosen, who's now in his final week, to broadcast the game tonight with John Davidson. And before JD left and went to, I believe when he left, he went to St. Louis. Yeah, he did. He went to St. Louis. He's in Columbus now. But when he went to St. Louis, they were the best play-by-play duo in the league. That was not even, and I'm looking at B-Rock because I'm sure he's going to complain. Nah, but you weren't alive then.
Doc and Chico?
No, Chico, stop with Chico. Doc is phenomenal. Chico was no, we're not having this discussion. Chico would go around in the Chico Eats thing. Stop. Does he really? Yeah. Okay. So tonight you should watch because it is the last chance, and it is sad that you will ever hear Sam Rosen and John Davidson together. They're in Long Island tomorrow night, and then they will play, this sounds like fun, in Carolina on Saturday and in Florida on Monday. And as Nikolai is asking, which is a very good question, and probably the most important question, how many days until opening night? The NHL did say that they were starting a little bit earlier next year. I think that's because they have the
Oh.
Olympics. I think it's the week of October 6th, so you don't have to wait. All right. I want to talk real quickly about Ovechkin because I have a question, and I want to actually say something positive about the Islanders that surprised me. Ovechkin breaks the record the other day.
Mhm.
Now, I looked not because I ever would have gone on Sunday. You could have given me a free ticket. I honestly probably would not have gone.
Mhm.
But I looked at the ticket prices. Now, going into that game on Sunday, you don't know if he's going to break the record, right? The cheapest ticket when I looked on Saturday to get on StubHub was like low $700 to possibly see history. To me, that's crazy. Like, it would be cool to be there if you knew definitively he was going to be there. But even if I knew he was going to break it, I'm not sure I'm dropping that money. All
Mhm.
right. So there's that, right? Then I'm watching the game and nobody is talking about this. And I don't know how nobody's talking about this. There were a ton of Islander fans there, meaning you went to support your team in most likely a meaningless game because you're not making the playoffs, where you could have flipped your ticket for a
Yeah.
substantial amount of money. I give these people credit. I really,
Yeah.
to me, when I thought watching that game, and I was able to watch it on Sunday because we had a gap in between our kids stuff, was that like it would be all Caps fans, but there were a ton of Islander fans there that chose not to sell their tickets where they could have been paid.
Yeah.
You know, they could have paid for their summer vacation. I was super impressed. So congrats to Ovechkin. Ovechkin is a guy, and I've said this forever.
Mhm.
I I can't hate Alexander Ovechkin. I hate Sidney Crosby. There's plenty of players, great players. I hated Mario Lemieux. There's plenty of great players in the league I have hated. Hated.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've never once hated Alexander Ovechkin. I even when they used to play in the playoffs in the early like 2010 era or late 2000s, never hated the guy. And he would do, he would beat the Rangers. Dan Girardi and Mark Stahl would shut him down. But you can't hate him. It's just a great guy. And the best thing about Alexander Ovechkin is if you ever see and they've been showing it a lot this week, the guy eats like he's not an athlete. He brings Cheetos on the plane. He's drinking beers. If you look at his body, he's not really the most fit guy. And he's now the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll pull up Jeff Adelson's question because I see it keep coming up. The last one at the bottom. Where is the love and passion for the game anymore? The Rangers have lost the feeling to win anymore. You are absolutely correct, sir. That is the number one problem. And if
Yeah.
you've been listening today, I have alluded to that. So, programming note next week, Wednesday, I am on the road for my real job. I will actually be in Boston. I might go to the Devils and Bruins in Boston next Tuesday night.
Mhm.
If the ticket prices drop beyond lower than $20, maybe I'll go. Not that I care, but it's something to do. So we will be on most likely on Thursday. If we are on next week, and the plan is to be on, it will be on Thursday morning, April 17th, not Wednesday the 16th. Just a heads up. Little programming note. We'll put that on Instagram next week to remind people and also let you know.
Mhm.
Michael, I have been to TD Garden many times. I went to college up there. So when I was at BU, we would always go to the Beanpot, but whenever the Rangers would come to town or the Knicks would come to town, I would go. And you want to know how old I am? They
Yeah.
used to do this thing. I'm sure they don't do it at the TD Garden anymore. It actually used to be the Fleet Center when I lived up there. If you were a college student, you could get tickets to any of the games, the Bruins or Celtics, for $10. The only problem was you were in row 15 of the balcony, which was legit the top row, but it was great. We used to go all the time. I was at the game, a terrible story. The Bruins eliminated my freshman year of college. I think it was my freshman year of college.
Mhm.
The Carolina Hurricanes on a Sunday night. It was like game 6. They were up 3-2 in the series. The Bruins won 4-2, eliminated the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes flew home, were drinking on the plane. Their season had just ended, and one of their players got in a drunk driving accident and killed himself. Well, he died in the accident
Jeez.
driving home. But I was at that game 6. So
That's crazy.
just stay positive, people. Opening night's coming soon. And you know what? For the offseason, I would expect – I don't think that they would replace Laviolette between now and next Thursday. I'm not really sure what that does.
Mhm.
But I would expect that sometime soon you're going to see some changes there. And then it will be interesting to see if the jury goes with them. And then the offseason fun begins. We thank the Bamboozle Project, as always, for their sponsorship of the show. Go to thebamboozleproject.com. Check out the site. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20%. And we thank DraftKings as well. And we will talk to you guys most likely next Thursday.